the Ayatollah is reportedly dead. That doesn't mean that the entire regime in Iran has been brought to its knees, but certainly the man at the head of it is, according to an Israeli spokesperson, dead. Trump is reportedly now looking for an off-ramp and says that he will see Iran in another 2 years when they have had a chance to rebuild their nuclear program. What happens next is the question that I'm asking you this hour. Tony has been in touch on 84850 and says, if Trump thinks he can just kill the supreme leader, call a halt and say that's it, he's mistaken. There will be attacks on the West for sure. And Andy says, this has just inflamed the situation. I was hoping that it didn't turn into a full-scale conflict. Pakistan and Afghanistan are in conflict next door to Iran. India could now join and attack Pakistan and Afghanistan as Modi has been given a green light to attack an Islamic regime he sees as a threat. Kind of going back to the question that I asked, if you can remember that far back, at 6 p.m. tonight, are we less safe than we were 24 hours ago? Now it doesn't look like there is even going to be a regime change in Iran. The answer is looking more and more like, yes, we are less safe than we were. Dylan has called from Whetstone in Barnet. What would you like to say?
Hi, Natasha.
Hi.
Thanks for having me on. Just a couple of things. I know quite a few Iranian people, and you've had a number on the show over the past few hours. I mean, the majority really seem to be quite clear that this is a great thing for them and for their freedom. That seems to be very, very clear coming from a number of Iranian people. So in Birmingham, there are a lot of others saying very similar things. I'm sure they're quite frustrated. I'd imagine they're quite frustrated with hearing your show, your comments, and a lot of people saying the obsession with Trump, the obsession with whether this is sort of safer, etc. Like isn't it obvious if you're an Iranian and you're saying we need help and we want help, and then they're getting help? That is. But are they
getting help though? Because is this the same point that you were making before that breaking news from Simon Marks?
No, not at all. No, I'm saying a completely different point. I think Simon Marks' point is different, and also in the fog of war, the truth is often shrouded, and so it's not clear what Trump is going to say and what he's going to do, and that's part of the war story. But the fact is that what he seems to be doing is going to the aid of the Iranian people. And if the Ayatollah's dead, would you yourself say that the world is better for him being dead or not?
I don't know, because it's not just one man, is it? It's an entire regime and system of government that is in place there. So I don't know what's going to happen next. Okay.
But if the regime were to fall because the Ayatollah falls, and here is a man, let's be clear, I don't think it's said too much on the programme, but let's be clear, this is a regime in 89 that put a fatwa on a British person's head, Salman Rushdie, who 33 years was hounded until he was stabbed and lost an eye in 3 years ago. That's a government. That is a regime. That is the same regime who's actually called for the annihilation of the state of Israel, to be wiped off the map.
No one's a fan of the regime in Iran right now.
But what's frustrating,
literally no one is speaking up for them.
I understand, but what's frustrating is how quickly, and I think you had an American caller, Aaron, on earlier, who also said how quickly you seem to change the conversation into, well, this is all about Trump, and Trump can do no good. He can do no right. Whatever he does is going to be wrong. On the one hand, you said before, well, actually, Trump is doing this to stay in power, which actually is actually factually untrue. Or that Trump's doing this because he's going to be sued, or Trump's doing this because he wants to be popular. Actually, this is a very potentially unpopular thing that he's doing.
No, I didn't say that he was doing it to be popular. I agree with you. It's a very unpopular decision. What I'm saying is, if the country is at war, it makes it more likely that he can delay the midterms.
Does it ever cross your mind that maybe, just maybe for once, that even though it's Trump or Netanyahu or anyone in the West, actually they're standing up for right and wrong?
No, I'm not that naive to think either of those men has a decent bone in their body.
So even if because you think they're not decent, but whatever they do, you will never say whatever they do.
No, that's not what I said. If you'd listened to what I said this could be a good thing for the people of Iran. That doesn't make Trump or Netanyahu good people. They might have done it. They may have done a good thing, and I've acknowledged that right from 6 o'clock.
Is there anything that Trump could do that you would think would be a good thing? And I think that was a frustration your American caller had earlier.
Dylan, I said it could be a good thing for the Iranian people. It's you that's not acknowledging the nuance. Just because I think that this could be a good thing for the Iranian people doesn't mean that I suddenly have to become a huge fan of Donald Trump.
No, I'm not asking you to become a huge fan of Donald Trump. I'm saying, are there times where actually you think what he's doing or what Netanyahu's doing to stand up for the values of the West and actually call out a tyrant regime is ever a good thing and is ever something you'd ever back?
That's the question that I asked right from the beginning. Thank you for listening, Dylan, and thank you for your call. We are now joined by Brett Bruen, who's president of the Global Situation Room and former US diplomat. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I don't know, Brett, if you have been able to catch up with President Trump's latest comments where he says that he's potentially looking for an off-ramp from this war in Iran. Our caller there saying that's just the fog of war. That may very well not be what he's planning at all. What do you make of those comments?
I think that's probably his strategy, and I've been saying it for a while, that he was likely to engage in some sort of performative strike. Maybe he, as reports suggest, was able to take out the Iranian leader, but I think ultimately Trump is reluctant to get engaged in a longer-term battle, and that has been his modus operandi in any number of these hotspots around the world. So we are likely to see in the Iranian case him looking for an exit and out. I think the real question is, what is he leaving behind? And that is, as of yet, unclear.
And that's the question that we're actually dedicating ourselves to this hour. It's what happens next. There are conflicting reports about the Ayatollah. So the Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson has said on ABC News that the Iranian Supreme Leader is safe and sound. But the head of public relations for the office of Khamenei has said that the enemy has resorted to psychological warfare. We should be careful about it. Meanwhile, the Israeli spokesperson has said that he's dead and we've found the body. So we're not quite sure what the situation is. But if the Ayatollah is indeed dead, what do you think happens next?
Well, it creates a power vacuum. And the question then is, who fills that vacuum? You know, Trump overnight was suggesting that Iranians should take power for themselves. As somebody who served in Iraq and worked on the ground outside of Tikrit, I can tell you that, you know, just by knocking off a leader, even a regime, you don't necessarily get a better result. And that's where I think we've got to be extremely careful that we're not inviting, we're not empowering an even more extremist group of radicals to take over power, or, you know, worse yet, that this could break out into a very destabilizing civil war for the region. And let's not forget, Iran has a whole lot of proxies and a whole lot of cells and other entities that are able to do its bidding around the world. And that is what I am watching for at this hour. I'm concerned that activating some of those elements, striking U.S. Western interests to try to increase the cost of our attacks against Iran may be in the offing.
And do you think, I mean, you've spoken about civil war there, but do you think that there will be wider repercussions for the United States and their allies, considering the escalation that has taken place in the past 24 hours?
Without question. And look, there have already been very high costs inflicted on our allies in the Gulf. I worry that we will only see more of both those direct strikes, but Iran is not Venezuela. Iran has a far vaster capability and network, and that is where I think, you know, Trump and his team may have taken the wrong lessons from their success in extracting Nicolas Maduro from Caracas, and expecting the same to be the case here in Iran, whereas I think Iran the regime fighting for its existence, will utilize every tool that they have developed over the course of a half century.
Brett Bruen, thank you so much, president of the Global Situation Room and former US diplomat there. My question to you this hour is, what happens next? And your guess is as good as mine. I genuinely don't know. And I have said this consistently since I came on air at 6 o'clock this evening. This could be a really good thing for the Iranian people. And if it is, I will celebrate that. And just because I think that a lot of the players involved in this have really nefarious intentions and don't have the Iranian people's best interests at heart doesn't mean that something good can't come out of this. But we have to ask ourselves, with the quickly developing situation, how does that positive outcome for the Iranian people come about? What does it look like? Baha has called from Fulham. What would you like to say?
Hi. Essentially, whilst I understand the need for everyone to run, various scenario analysis on what they think is going to happen next, I think a lot of what is speculation has basically been quite unhelpful for the morale of the people actually living and breathing the experience. Specifically, a lot of the comparisons to neighbours who have gone through similar scenarios, namely, Iraq, Syria. Yeah. And I think there's a massive underestimation of the ability of the actual population in Iran and also the diaspora outside of Iran, a lot of whom are, ready and waiting to go in. We still have one of the highest education rates for women within Iran, as you well know. We have a diaspora of highly educated professional individuals, a lot of whom are waiting to go back and do something. And I think just the negativity is unhelpful for the morale of the people who've been calling out for 47 years, having lived under severe oppression. And you've seen all the recent, massacres that happen every time they try and speak up for themselves and ask for a change. And I think that maintaining their morale is extremely important, because I agree with you that a lot of the involvement from the West, and this goes back even to the 1979 revolution and why all of this started, has been for, very selfish means. I'm under no illusion that either Trump or Netanyahu are doing this for the love of Iran. Everybody understands it, and I get it. Understandably, they're out for their own interests. But it's a means to an end. And the people have been waiting for 47 years for somebody to come in and help them. A lot of the rhetoric that I hear is, well, you were very happy to go in and get rid of the Shah. Now we're begging you to come in and get rid of, a murderous regime. All of a sudden, morally and ethically, you don't want to be involved. So that was really the point I was making.
I think it's a really good point, and I'm really glad that you rang up to make it. I wonder how helpful you think it is to do what the US and Israel have done in the past 24 hours. So if the Israeli reports are to be believed, they've taken out the Ayatollah. They've also, it's been confirmed by the Middle East Eye, bombed a school and killed 85 children. There have been some civilian casualties, and the Iranian regime have responded by hitting targets in the UAE and elsewhere. As it stands now, do you think that they have been helpful?
Look, I think war, civilian loss and casualty is always devastating. 50,000 plus people in Iran aged anything from 14 through to 80, and most of those, as you know, are sort of teenagers, the ages of my children, university students. These are already casualties of the IRGC because they wanted to protest. So everything that's going on is obviously incredibly difficult to watch and witness. What I would say about the school that got bombed, and obviously, if you've got corroborated evidence that this has happened, then, obviously this has happened. But I would say generally any news that comes out of Iran should be listened to with caution,